Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Monthly Comic Roundup. I am Sid2. Joining me today is...
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is May Parker, and I am the advocate for the reigning, defending, undisputed, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man! The trailer for Far From Home was really good, guys. I'm just saying.
I don't watch trailers, so that one went... Oh man, yeah. So here we are yet again to review, or not review, well, kind of review, to go over our favorite comics of the month of January 2019. We've made it to year 2.
Oh my god!
Monthly Comic Roundup. We started in, I believe, March or maybe February, March or February of 2018.
No, it was definitely. It must have. Yeah, the first show was in April, but it was for March. I remember because it was WrestleMania month.
Okay, all right. So we got 3 more months to go until we get properly a full year of episodes. But we made it through 2018, and I'm proud of us.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mac, I always ask you because you're the one that keeps track of this shit.
Yeah.
Who started
the
last
all-powerful Google Doc.
Yay.
It is indeed your turn to go first.
Alrighty. Zorro Fan Production says any Zorro comic. I'm like I'm gonna say that now.
Spoilers, dude. Jeez.
Anyway, yeah. So my first pick for the month is Killmonger #3.
Oh wow, it's still getting spot.
Yeah. Oh, did this get the spot last time too?
Yeah.
Wow, I can't even.
Perfectly fine if it's good enough to get the spot again. That says something about it.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the first issue. This issue did not disappoint. It just kept on being good. I absolutely adore all the spiritualism stuff that they do with Eric. It's undeniably my favorite when he's talking to Bast. I don't know why, but it seems that Eric gives Bast female pronouns, which I've never seen anyone do before, and I'm not sure if that's like just a random choice or if there's something symbolic for that, particularly because this version of Eric, even though it is Marvel Comics 616 version, is more about it is much more heavily based on the film version, and the film version was very predatory and kind of manipulative of women. So if he's giving Bast female pronouns, that might be really interesting if those traits are continuing here, which they have been throughout the series. So I don't know what to really make of that, but I don't know, the wisdom of Bast. I love that shit. Every time they do spiritualism with Black Panther comics, I really like it. So this is cool to see again. There's a bunch of backstabbing subterfuge going around and stuff, and I really like this moment where he asks this woman he's been kind of a companion with to join him, come with him, and when he takes over Wakanda, she'll be his queen. And it's like this kind of the imagery he has in his head. So it's just really, really cool stuff. The art is absolutely fantastic.
In the chat says Egyptian god, they don't exactly have a set gender.
Fair enough. Is Bast an actual Egyptian god? Did they do that?
I'm not sure. I don't know shit about Black Panther outside of the one movie.
Yeah, I've never really looked into what Bast is based off of. I just figured, okay, they're Panther people. They worship a Panther god.
That's a fair assumption to make.
Yeah, I never realized if Bast is based on an actual mythical figure. That's even cooler. So. But yeah, just absolutely fantastic story. I've been really enjoying this series. I missed the second issue, so I had to go back and pick that up. And McPick says, yes, Bast is an Egyptian god. I'm going to have to look into that because I've never heard of it. That's
Time to do some Wikipedia foo.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't really have much else to say about it except that it's good. Read it. What do you got for us, sir?
My pick for week 1 is also a second issue, also a Marvel book, also has the Stan Lee fucking died banner. It is Winter Soldier #2 by Kyle Higgins. So I picked up the first issue of this book, and I'm going to go ahead and take it out of the bag. I picked up the first issue of this book last month, and I found it really underwhelming. Just kind of seemed like a generic first issue for a book about a character who's normally considered to be a sidekick. But this issue was really interesting, especially like the opening is worth the price of admission alone, because at the end of the first issue, we're introduced to this character who kills everyone in this restaurant that Bucky is in, and then walks in and basically is about to kill Bucky execution style and just goes, "Mr. Barnes, it's an honor to meet you," or something to that effect. This issue opens on a flashback of the kid meeting his handler for the first time. His name is RJ, and we basically find out that he got into some kind of trouble at school or something, did something very sadistic to another kid. And so this guy is approaching him and ordering all this food at the restaurant and saying he can't order anything. And he says to the waitress repeatedly, "No, he's not hungry. Don't worry about it. Don't talk to the kid." And he gets this huge like platter of pancakes and bacon and just the works as far as breakfast goes. And it
makes me hungry, Vac. This better have a really good reveal.
Well, he's talking to the kid and saying like, "Well, you show a certain aptitude for a set of skills I'm after. You seem like you might be really well suited to this field I'm in, and you might be a good kid to train for." Basically, he wants to make this kid an assassin. And he said, and so he goes, "Does that interest you?" And the kid's like, "Yes." "Okay. Are you hungry?" And the kid goes to say yes, and he goes, "Then show me." Hands him a Bowie knife. And he goes, "There's some people, a couple tables back, a bunch of truckers hanging out. Kill all of them without making a scene. Because food is for people who do a good job." So he goes back, and you just get panels of watching the guy eat some of his food and drink some coffee with all these blood red sound effects of the kid killing them in the background and like people screaming, "Call 911." Basically, he doesn't do a good job. The kid comes back all bloody, sits down at the table like, "I'm ready to eat." Sloppy. He knocks all the food off onto the ground. Sloppy people eat off the floor. And the kid gets down and just starts eating off the floor while the staff and people are dialing 911. And so we cut ahead to present day where he's about to kill Bucky. And Bucky is big comic book fight. You know how that goes. He basically gets advantage of the kid, knocks him out, ties him up, puts him on the back of his motorcycle because he realizes this kid is like him. He's been trained to be an assassin when he's at a young, somewhat manipulable age. And basically, it's Dick Grayson meeting Jason Todd instead of Bruce Wayne meeting Jason Todd. And there's the rest of the comic is basically them driving down the highway and having a discussion about, "You don't understand. My people are going to come and find me. They're going to kill you. My handler is tracking me right now." And him going, "No, I know perfectly well how this works. I spent years in this life, kid. Don't worry, I've got this." And then he gets shot off the road by the kid's handler, and there's a bit of a fight. And the kid's like, "Finally, I knew you'd come. Let's get out of here. I want to go home and rest." And he's like, "No, this was your final test. You're done now." And so Bucky has to, in a split second, save the kid from his handler. And it ends with Bucky offering this kid a chance to become his sidekick. Basically, this mini is going to be about Bucky rehabilitating RJ, who showed up wearing a costume looking very similar to his original one, has had a life very similar to him, and I don't think they ever explicitly say, but it's like pretty heavily hinted that he was being trained by Hydra. So I went from thinking this was a really lame book that was wasting a writer I like's talent to going, oh, they have a really good idea here and they're telling a very specific story. So I'm all in for this book now. I really like this issue.
That's cool. That's a nice twisted origin. I'm always a fan of things that are creating original characters. You don't get that as much in comics as you used to, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I'll go ahead and go on to my next pick, and that is Batman number 62 by Tom King and Mitch Gerads.
I remember you saying you really liked this book on Twitter.
Yeah, I really do. So Tom King kind of won me over on Batman, or his voice for Batman, right away. I was in a pretty bad place on the character's comics as of late because we just gotten done with 5 years of Scott Snyder, and I was apparently the only one in the world who didn't like that. And so I was really worried that whoever took over was just going to try to be like Scott Snyder, and I was going to kind of be worried about that, but I was hoping that anyone could at least do something new. And then Tom King, issue 1 of Batman Rebirth #1, not the official start of the series, but the
one with the plane.
Yeah. That was Batman #1. That one's fantastic. But issue 1 got me. I'm like, okay, Scott Snyder's involved with this, so I'm not really sure who's what, so this is okay. But then issue 1 official Batman Rebirth absolutely blew me away. Was literally the best Batman thing I'd read since Morrison.
That's literally, since it's come out, it has gone from being like, yeah, this is pretty good, to every time I've reread it, it has gotten higher and higher on my favorite single issues of all time.
Yeah, it is. It is an absolutely fantastic issue. It kind of perfectly sets up, if not the beginning of King's Run, almost all of King's Run. And it's asking a lot of really interesting questions and delving into the character in really interesting ways. And Tom King's done great work since and done absolutely fantastic things with the character since. This is better, if not as good, as Batman Rebirth #1.
Really? Okay.
I think this is the single best issue since #1.
I'm going to have to go back and reread it then, because I read that issue and I was like, it's good. It's Tom King on Batman. It's what I expect. Okay. And that was my complete review.
Yeah. I don't know, man. This one really worked for me. The situation here is Batman is at the mercy of one of his supervillains, as he so often is. It's Professor Pig, and he's... The whole issue takes place in his head, more or less. Pig barely talks throughout the whole issue, and it's just Batman thinking his way through a situation. So, on a certain level, yeah, it is a pretty just basic, bare-bones Batman story, but on another level, this is one of the most intensely perfect ways to write Batman I think we've ever seen. It's so perfectly focused on just one thing after another thing, and it's so wrapped up in everything else that's going on in the run currently, but that's all in the background. It's the reason this issue is so perfect is you can hand it to someone who hasn't been reading the run, and it'll work really, really well, and you can hand it to someone who has been reading the run, and I think it's perfect because you can look at the layers of it, how he can't stop thinking about everything else that's going on in his life, and how absolutely detrimental that is to the situation at hand. It's showing that Batman has become very unhinged because of everything that's been going on in his life throughout the Tom King's run. He's sitting here, he's thinking about the wedding, he's thinking about Bane, he's thinking about Dick Grayson right now, and just all of these really scattered things that King has been building up throughout his run are kind of coming into a head here as he's in this dangerous situation, and they're actively making him worse. And that's kind of been the point of King's Batman run, is he's getting a little bit worse every time because there's this mental war being waged on him. And it's all really fascinating. You couple that with Mitch Gerads' artwork, which is just so creepy and jaw-dropping and weird. And then there's the setting of just this slaughterhouse where everything is covered in blood, and it's so unsettling.
It doesn't feel like that's, and I'm not saying this is a detriment to the comic. It doesn't feel like a Batman comic. It feels like a Saw film, and I thought that was a really cool choice.
Yeah, I get you. And then like you get to the end of it, and you just get this crazy fucking reveal. So spoilers. Where Batman realizes that it can't be real because he doesn't have any memory of how he got there. So he knows he just has to ask, and he does. And then Pig takes off his mask, and it's fucking Damian Wayne. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? It's just such a mind fuck. And then it's just...
So what do you think King was trying to say about their relationship with that? Because I draw a total blank.
I'm not entirely sure it's necessarily about Batman's relationship with Damian. To be fair, I don't really know what's going on in Teen Titans right now, but I know they're fighting at the moment, so there's some subtext there that might be worth picking up. And then there's just the fact that he's lost and he's ignoring people in his life right now because he's so just on this crusade at the moment that I find really, really interesting. It's a damn intense issue. It's just phenomenal. I was absolutely blown away by how good I thought this issue was. I'm yet to buy a Tom King trade. I might buy the Nightmares trade just because I'm really curious to see how all three of these stories read together as like one big piece.
I have I Am Gotham and both of the original trades for Division. I want to catch up on the Batman trades just because I always buy issues just because I want to read things now, and trades I more so buy for display purposes, and also I'll reread for something when I get a new trade.
That's cool. All right. What have you got next for us, sir?
All right, my pick for week 2 is basically going to the entire end of the tonal spectrum from Batman, very gritty, dark, serious hero, to friggin' Saban's Go-Go Power Rangers number, what is this? What are we on? 16. This is basically just very sufficiently and well wrapping up the current arc of Jason and Trini being trapped in the alternate dimension and having their suit colors swapped. We get some cool stuff with Rita showing a flashback to 10,000 years ago when the original war between good and evil took place, and just a really cool armor design for Rita that I think is brand new for this comic, and hopefully we'll get to see more of in the future, showing that originally she gave the Dragon Coin to someone from this dimension that they're in, but they weren't able to properly control the powers, and so she took them away from them and then killed that servant and basically gave the coin to Finster and said, we need to make some improvements. What do you have an idea? And that's where the idea for the Dragon Shield, the big gold shield that goes over that Ranger, came from. Cool little bit of extra continuity and lore added in. And then we cut back to modern day with Trini and Jason figuring out a way to get the coin away from Rita once she comes out of the temple, and the others are finally able to teleport into this dimension and help them, and we get everyone else getting their colors swapped, and there's some really fun stuff done with that. I especially love Zach, who's just friggin' pumped to be the Pink Ranger, and I'm like, yes, thank you, that is Zach to a T, because while I do really like Kyle Higgins' Mighty Morphin Power Rangers run, I feel like he really screwed up Zach. I feel like he didn't get that character at all. But not Ryan freaking Parrott, dude. He's got Zach down. Zach is the life of the party no matter the situation. That is exactly what that character is. And then it's basically a giant fight from there on out, which ends in probably the best moment that has most accurately captured tokusatsu in a comic book form. We get a full page spread, which was my phone background for a couple weeks, of them putting the Power Blaster together. And you got them shouting out all their weapon names in big, huge font, and it says Power Blaster right down at the bottom. That is exactly the level of, like, you need to be excited that this is happening, that you should put for something like the Power Blaster coming together. And that's not been in any of these comics till now. So I was so excited to see it happen. And then we get the Rangers doing something that they were never smart enough to do in the show, which is they just freaking point the Power Blaster at Rita and go, hey, give us that thing you're trying to use for evil or we're going to shoot you. And she ends up actually... We see why they never did that in the show, because she ends up blocking it with a spell from her staff and then teleporting away. But it's still really cool that somebody finally did that. And then we cut back to Rita's palace, where we find out that a bunch of the minions have basically been planning a coup because, hey, we've been sending monster after monster to take down the Rangers, and so far we've not been successful. Rita doesn't seem to know what the hell she's doing. Maybe we should try and take over. And so they try to stage a coup, and immediately they find out that the guy whose idea it was somebody who was told by Rita to set them up. So she could see who was loyal to her and who wasn't. And she goes, okay, good. None of you were loyal to me. That's exactly what I want. I want all of us to be on our toes at all time, because that's the only way we're going to win this. Now, if any of you ever actually betray me, don't make any mistakes. If you fail, you're going to die. And I'm like, this is not my preferred Rita, because my preferred Rita is season 3 Rita, who is basically the mom in a screwball sitcom. But this is still a really good interpretation of Rita. If you're going to actually try and do badass Rita, this is what you do. And then we get some more wrap-up where Jason and Trini, because they kissed in the last issue, and there's been build-up all throughout this book of Trini having a crush on Jason and him not knowing how to handle it, they just decide, let's just give being a couple a try. Let's just see what it's like for us. Not a bunch of will they, won't they drama. Just straight up, we kissed. It wasn't bad. We're still friends. Let's see how this goes. And you know what? I really appreciate that in a book about teenagers. You know, you could have done much worse. Then there's a last page reveal, which has nothing to do with the rest of this story, so I won't talk about that until we get more information on it. But really solid wrap up to the arc, and just some great little moments that I've been waiting for since we got the announcement of these comics. So
nice. Alrighty. Well, I'll go ahead and go on to my pick. Pretty predictable for me, honestly, but it's Wonder Woman number 62.
Hey!
Yeah. So this pretty much gets picked for one of the best comic book speeches I think I've ever read. So the story thus far is that Ares has escaped his prison on Themyscira, but unlike what he's been like in the past, where he's this war crazy, dig into the hearts of evil of men and prove that they don't deserve life or anything like that. He's actually been somewhat rehabilitated and realizes that he was wrong, that people are good, that they deserve the world. But he's still the god of war, so he's kind of been trapped in this worldview of, like, he can't help who he is. He's the god of war, so his only means of expression is war. So he found a people that he determined pretty, justly, sure, but pretty haphazardly, these people are being victimized by their government, and their government's evil, and so the government needs to be toppled at any cost. And so the story arc has been called The Just War. And Wonder Woman's been in this, and she's like not happy with Etta Candy, who's kind of the allegory for the US, and the U.S.'s involvement in this situation because she's not happy with the political circumstance, but at the same time, she doesn't like the idea of an open rebellion against this government because people are dying in the crossfire. It's a civil war. And so she's kind of brokered a peace negotiation between the prime minister of the government and the leaders of the rebellion that Ares kind of sparked on. And she's trying to get him there. And as they're arriving at the location for this peace summit, Ares is there. And he says he's not going to fight Diana. He's not going to fight anyone else. He's going to kill this prime minister whose regime is completely and totally corrupt in his mind. And the guy's like, the prime minister says, I am no coward. My people elected me to lead, so here I am. And Ares just, one of the best speeches in comics I've ever read. You play at being brave, little man. You think you can hide behind the will of the people, but your people, like all of Prometheus's gets, are ruled by their fear of the dark. And they will choose monsters to lead them because they prefer the evil of the monster to the uncertainty of the darkness. I fucking love that line. They will choose monsters to lead them because they prefer the evil of the monster to the uncertainty of the darkness. To wrap that all up with Prometheus, usually when people talk about Prometheus in metaphor, they talk about the advancement of technology. They very rarely talk about the shelter from the unknown or the darkness. And to perfectly kind of wrap those two things together, I thought was just excellent. So Ares goes to kill the prime minister. Wonder Woman comes in and they fight. And it's, a pretty cool climactic battle. Ares even gets the lasso of truth at one point, or the golden perfect, as it's been called since Rebirth, and uses it on Wonder Woman. And she says, there is one lesson every common soldier learns, yet Ares has not. Never pick up a weapon you do not yet know how to yield. And she kind of takes it back from him.
Oh, shit.
In just an instant. It is so cool. And lasso is not a sword. It has no edged side, no blunt side. It is a loop, a weapon with neither beginning nor end, and it uses the aggressor's own strength against him. I would happily give you a demonstration. Just great speech. So she ends up disarming Ares. They go on fighting, and Aphrodite, who of course married Ares in original Greek myths, makes them stop and whispers something to Ares. We have no idea what it is, but it makes him concede because all we see is her whisper and then get up, and Ares says, Aphrodite, please take it back. And she says, those words once spoken cannot be called back. You know that. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean?
Can I take a shot in the dark at what she said?
Sure.
Dude, the script says you're going to lose in 2 pages.
No, I don't know. That's like cool stuff, setting up the next thing, and then the peace negotiations are able to happen, and instead of keeping the country united, they actually split the country up into 2 different nations, which is like huge. And part of
that's rarely ever how civil wars end.
Right? But part of the peace negotiation is that the gods need to leave. Anyone that's from Olympus needs to get the fuck out. That includes Wonder Woman and Ares. So like Wonder Woman's banished from a country now that she helped bring peace to, and before she leaves, she and Ares talk. And I just love this little moment of Ares looking out at the war-torn nation and says, is this what peace looks like? And I'm just like, God,
shit.
I know there's so much going on in here that's like super interesting. And Ares asks her, do we part as enemies? And Wonder Woman says, we do not part as friends, but I have no wish to make an enemy out of someone who sincerely wants to change. So Ares has this really interesting character arc where he kind of realizes about himself that he's no longer evil, but he's still wrapped up in his own nature as the god of war. So he needs to find a way to work on that. Anyway, Wonder Woman's just really having a hard time still with not being able to ever go back to Themyscira. And she takes a moment and looks at the horizon and says, "Mother, all the gods of earth and sea and sky, if my people still live, if my homeland is still safe, give me a sign." She opens her eyes and looks, and there's nothing. No miraculous sign, just the setting of the sun in the distance. So really, really great way to end the first story arc on this. I was absolutely blown away. Julia Wilson is damn perfect kind of writer for Wonder Woman. She's off to just a dynamite start, and I'm really, really impressed with that. I also really love the art in this issue. The art through the arc has been a little hit and miss for me, but this issue was just on point. Again, like, this panel of Wonder Woman is fantastic. I love her hair blowing in the wind. I love the lasso. That's great shit. Anyway, yep, great issue. Great story arc. If anyone's been kind of on the fence about whether or not they want to get into Wonder Woman or whatever with Wilson on the book, pick up the first few issues of her run. They've been really, really impressive.
All right. Well, for my pick this week, okay, everybody, get out your pitchforks and your torches. Ian, put your boxing gloves on because we're about to have a big old fight and I'm going to die on a hill. It's Superman #7. Okay.
Okay, hold on. I too have that in my list of things to talk about this week. So normally...
Oh, no, you didn't!
Worst book of the month.
Oh, man! Holy shit. Okay. All right. So you know what? Let's play pros and cons.
All right.
Pro, you do a con. So
okay.
I'm just going to start off with the cover. The New 52 suit has never looked better than how it looks on Lois Lane. Like, I was astounded by how... If there's ever been a case for Lois Lane actually being a superhero, it's how she looks in that costume. Holy shit, perfect fit.
Okay. Con. This is the last time we're ever going to get to see John Kent as Superboy proper as a young child, and that's just pissing me off. It's just... I'm immediately...
You don't know that. There's flashbacks. There's more pages in that issue. There's more issues of Adventures of Super Son coming. It's possible. It's possible.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that. That's how I feel, and I'm worried and upset.
All right, pro. So I've talked a lot about how I'm really disappointed in the current Supergirl run, how I was so excited for it to be this giant, fun, space-hopping adventure with a good emotional core to it. This is what I felt like I was promised. This just is what I envisioned that book to be. All the flashback stuff in here where John and Jor-El and Lois are on the ship and they're going about the galaxy. Like, this is that kind of fun. We're not really used to being in space, but we're figuring it out. And you think things are going to be kind of weird, but really there's tater tots in space. It's cool. We're fine. Okay, this is part of it, but I'll save this for my next pro.
Okay. John is written very out of character, which is particularly weird because it just feels like he's written as really generic youth. And
see, you said that on the live show. I don't feel it. He feels about the same. Maybe he's got a bit more bravado, but he feels about the same.
Ha, Dad would poop.
That's a weird line, but also I just don't remember what kids talk like at all.
It just doesn't feel very, very in character for John. It does feel a lot like generic youth, which is weird for Bendis since he's written a lot of like really young characters really well over the years.
Well, he writes teenagers. He doesn't write young characters.
Good point. Good point.
Pro. I thought the scene with Lobo was hilarious.
I'll grant you that. That was fun. Okay, con. Lois feels like she's written like suburban mom here, and Lois Lane is
post 52. Lois has just been all over the place characterization wise.
I don't know, like this whole thing where everyone comes running to her because she's got the Superman shield on has, I guess, some weight because she's never really been seen.
That was actually going to be my next pro. I like that scene because it shows how deified Superman is on planets where he doesn't actually hang out all that often. And that's something we don't do too often.
Yeah, like that side worked, but it just feels very out of character for the way Lois reacts, where she's so overwhelmed by it because she's been like the best reporter ever. She's been to war-torn areas of the world. She's seen kind of the worst that humanity has to offer. Like refugees and people who are frightened for their life and on the edge of desperation. I mean, it shouldn't affect her this much just because they're aliens and they're looking at her like she can do something because she's got the Superman shield on. Yeah, I mean, I can't help but feel like Lois has been looked at that way just because she's American in the past.
That's possible. My last pro is Clark is just continuing to be the best dad in the world. He finds out his son has aged a whole lot, that he's been through a bunch of shit, and that they completely missed it. And instead of flipping out, he just hugs him and goes, "It's okay, we're gonna figure this out." And that's exactly what the fuck you do with Superman as a dad when you put him in a situation like this.
Yeah, Bendis's scenes with John and Clark have been really good, and that's the thing that's so weird for me is his dialogue for John in the past has been just damn good, and it was a bit surprising to see it come off as so clunky here. I will say, I'll give you another pro. I did legit laugh at the bringing him to Lois scene where she thinks it's a booty call.
I couldn't decide if I thought it was hilarious or a bit inappropriate for a Superman comic.
Yeah, I see where that comes from too, but I don't know. They're a married couple, god damn it. Yeah, so for me, we can talk, like, even if this issue was perfect, and I guess my other major con is it's what happened? Superboy's lost years, and this is all Lois's story. There's really no reason we shouldn't have gotten this story like a couple issues ago when Lois showed up.
Well, it almost feels like, see, it's hard to say because of the way he's paced things out and the fact that John is already back, but there's part of me that says, like, maybe Lois's perspective of the trip should have been like a running backup in action up to this point or something.
That'd been better. Yeah, just less than impressed. So, like, that's the con, but really the major con here is nothing is going to make me...
Robert Emmett in chat, yes, that is what Supes would do back, unless it's Young Justice Superman. Yeah, Young Justice Superman is a pile of dicks.
He got better. Season 2, he was fine.
Young Justice Superman is the kind of Superman who would put Kara in an orphanage because him having a child would harsh his style.
Oh, no,
that's actually you know what? That's justification for why. If you've been watching my Twitter, you know I've been getting really annoyed that Supergirl still hasn't shown up in Young Justice. That is good justification for her not being in that show.
Yeah, but for me, the overwhelming thing that's just going to bring this down is, you know, Bendis kind of promised that he was going to do stuff with John, and it was going to be really interesting, and he wasn't just going to write out the character or just completely change him. And he more or less wrote out the character and completely changed him. At this point, John has been gone in continuity for longer than he's even existed. And that's disappointing.
It is a bit odd, I'll agree to that.
So, like, really, unless we start doing some really interesting stuff, unless we give, like, Superboy The Lost Years a mini-series or something, where I can start to see this change. It just feels like Whiplash, and I'm just not really going to be okay with it if this is permanent. I can't.
That's what the Super Sons guy needs to do next. Now that when Super Sons wraps up.
Yeah, maybe. I really don't know. It's just disappointing. There was a great little fan comic that got posted of someone drew Damien and John hugging, and John said something like, "I was so scared, I thought I lost you for years," and Damien said, "Don't worry, I always know where you are." And I was like, the feels. It was a big gamble, just from a writing perspective. If you think about trying to write the scene where John Kent shows up as a teenager, after you just, like, really, he got no time as a kid when you really think about it, and like comic book timing.
Robert Emmett, that's a good joke, but if she's not on screen, it doesn't count. All I want is to see my wife in my favorite DC show. Why is that so hard to happen?
I don't know. I'm a little surprised we got Wonder Girl and they did literally nothing with her first. So, maybe that'll happen. Maybe you'll see Supergirl. She's just been there the whole time and we're not ever going to do anything with her.
Yeah, she got added to Megan's Young Justice team off screen.
Yeah. I don't know. From a writing perspective, though, this does feel just like this is a really bold decision, and I don't know why he didn't think he'd piss people off. So I'm pretty sure he knew he'd piss people off and just decided his story was more important, and that kind of mentality can pay off in big regards, or it can piss a lot of people off, and I'm in the pissed off camp right now.
I don't want actually get mad at anybody for saying the comic is bad. I understand that viewpoint. I'm just saying it didn't really bother me on any of the levels that people have brought up. I'm just like, it's comics. This kind of shit happens. The only thing that would piss me off is if I felt like it was being handled, if the actual thing they were doing was being handled poorly, rather than me thinking doing it was a poor decision. It's kind of like, did this person die for shock value, or did they die for a good reason that advances the story and them as a character?
Okay, I think that's fair.
I guess you can say it kind of remains to be seen whether or not this is a good or a bad decision when you're going by those standards.
Yeah, that's fair. Alrighty. Well, I guess it's my turn next then.
Yeah, your pick for week 3.
Yes. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man #2.
Hey!
I'll just say this would have been #1, but #1 came out I think the same week as Wonder Woman, and so I just had to put that above it. But Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man 2 came out at the same time, so hey. I'm just really enjoying Tom Taylor's voice for Peter Parker. This really does feel like loser Peter Parker from Spider-Verse, if anyone was curious. Where he's just kind of weird and awkward and stuff, and that's fun. I love that Johnny Storm shows up at one point to babysit these kids so Spider-Man can do some investigation. And
that scene was so great.
Yeah. And he kind of warns them okay, now these kids might be a little awkward, so just don't freak out if they don't immediately take to you. And right away they're like, "Oh my God, you're the Human Torch! You're the best superhero ever!" And Spider-Man is like, "God damn it!"
I think he literally just says, "I hate you, Johnny."
Yeah, some shit like that. And then Tom Taylor always getting confused for Tom King, so he put a 9-panel grid in here to make sure that wouldn't happen. And so this is a cool little first-person perspective from someone filming Spider-Man stopping part of a building from collapsing on their phone, but Spider-Man's like, "Move, get out of the street," and then the rubble comes really close to the camera, and then you just got Spider-Man's back, and you get the next panel, and Spider-Man saved him, which is really cool. And I just love the little internal monologue he has at this moment. Seriously, in situations like this, bystanders used to do less bystanding and more by running. And I really like that line. That's really funny. And And there's just a bunch of like awkward, this is weird, I don't really know, like I'm just kind of a weird guy. Like this detective hands him her card and he's like, he just puts it in his pants and she's like, you're putting that in your pants? He's like, I don't have pockets. It's just hilariously awkward and funny. So you're just gonna carry my card around in your pants in case of emergencies? Apparently. Bye. So it's just a really fun voice for
That felt
Spider-Man.
like such a nice little jab at every Spider-Man writer ever for never giving him pockets.
I guess.
And then Superman has pockets in his cape. Why doesn't Spider-Man have pockets somewhere?
I know, right? And then like, so he tracks down this guy with the superpowers and blah blah blah. And then like he's getting ready to fight old dude, and then his elderly neighbor shows up and does that. So it's like, oh, mystery and intrigue and yay. And turns out she's some kind of superhero, the rumor. So we'll see where that goes, but I'm mainly just here for the character writing. I'm really enjoying the character voices that we got going on right now.
Yeah, that's been such a fun little book happening kind of for no reason other than Tom Taylor is great and the man should get work.
And it's just really good because while this book is wrapped up in current continuity and stuff, like the Nick Spencer plot of the roommate that's a supervillain is there, it's not like dependent on Spider-Man continuity right now, which is great.
It doesn't feel like 90s Spider-Man where you had to read every book to understand what was going on in one of them.
Mm-hmm. Robert Emmett says, yeah, Spidey Taylor is great. You guys should really read his all-new Wolverine book with X-23 and her clone sister and their pet Wolverine, Jonathan. I didn't make that part up.
I've read the first trade of that. It's really cute. I want to get back to it at some point.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just great to have a cool jump-on book for Spider-Man. Because I've always wanted to be into Spider-Man. Where do you start?
Fucking Amazing Fantasy 15.
Right?
I listened to that episode of Geeky Gentleman.
I mean, that's always been the case, though, with anything Marvel. Yeah. It's just, where do you start with X-Men? Well, you go to the beginning of Chris Claremont's 30-year run on the book.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't stop.
And it's like, okay, how much is the complete trades of that? $80 a piece, and there's 20 of them.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna go back to those movies.
Mm-hmm. All right, Vec, what you got for us?
My pick for week 3 is gonna be Batman number 63, because, like I said when you were talking about 62, I'd kind of just been coasting through the Nightmares arc up until this point, just kind of going like, this Tom King, it's all right, he's doing his thing, yeah. Well, he's doing some weird kind of hallucinogenic storyline. I'm sure we'll get some answers on what is actually going on eventually. And then we got to the issue where we get actual answers, where Tom Constantine shows up and is basically like, hey, this whole thing is a hallucination. Everything you've experienced in the last couple days is a hallucination. You're an electric chair. I'm not even real. I'm your subconscious trying to warn you that you're going to die soon. And it's surrounded by like this really heartbreaking story about what could have been if him and Selena had actually gotten married. And it ends with Selena dying and John basically giving the speech about what exactly is going on in the real world and him going, you knew this, didn't you? And Batman's just like, yeah, I just wanted to enjoy it. And it's like, Tom King is so good at making you actually sad for Bruce Wayne, and not in just the cheap way of, hey, his parents died when he was a little rich kid.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a writer actually try and do that, and Tom King is so good at it. And you'll notice most of the issues of his I pick is issues where that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, not much to say about it. It's just a really solid issue that finally lets you in on what the heck he's doing, and in a really nicely heartbreaking way. So yeah, Batman number 63. I liked it.
As you do. Yeah, that's a good issue too. The previous one just kind of brought like it set that up a lot harder than any of the other Nightmare stories had. So it was just like a really cool little insight.
I feel like 62 was probably showing you what was going on for the smart people, and then 63 was for the slightly dumber people like myself.
Yes.
And just confirming it for the smart people.
Indubitably. Alrighty. Go ahead and go on to my next pick. I guess it's Tom King month because I'm going with Heroes in Crisis number 5.
Okay.
Yeah, this series I continue to get.
Apparently, Superman wants me for the Justice League. The way he's pointing at me, he looks like Uncle Sam.
That's a cool point. I initially was like kind of like I really liked the character moments. I really liked the idea behind the Sanctuary, and I really liked the therapy sessions. I don't really care for the overall plot, the murder mystery, but this issue is kind of getting me more into that side of things too, and they're interconnecting them a lot more, which is really cool. I like Clayman's layouts quite a bit. I did a whole discussion on Clayman's art and the way he's drawing female characters in this. If anyone wants to go see that, they can see my review of this, posted last night. But I thought this series was just is absolutely fantastic. It's blowing me away with some of the storytelling it's able to do, and just some of the way the plot's advancing. I love that the moment where like Booster Gold and Blue Beetle are sitting there like, okay, we're gonna do exactly what I already did because now they're not expecting it. It's the dumbest idea ever. Yeah, but it's so dumb they won't even think of it. And then I talked about this last night, and I actively decided not to read the speech because it's just such a good speech. But like, fuck it, I gotta read the speech. So Superman gives a speech talking about what Sanctuary is, and I was just blown away because it's such a good Superman speech. We have a statement prepared that we'd like to make. It won't take long. There was an incident at a facility in which a number of our people were killed, brave men and women who dedicated their lives to service, who had done everything in their power with their power to help those in need. Those noble souls are now forever lost. Allow me to assure you we are using every means at our disposal to investigate this heinous act. Unfortunately, we have limited information as to who was responsible and why they have done what they have done. We have shared what we know with federal and local authorities. As has been reported, Harley Quinn and Booster Gold are wanted for questioning concerning this incident. We encourage anyone with knowledge of their whereabouts to immediately contact local law enforcement. Now, that being said, we would like to address the concerns some have expressed with regards to the function of this facility, a place we call Sanctuary, and why we have kept it out of the public's eye. Sanctuary is a place of respite, a place where those who live their lives enscored in violence may seek and find a moment's peace, where those who have absorbed the lasting blows of that life of violence may seek and find a moment to heal. The question then arises naturally. If we need peace, if we need to heal, if we need anything, does that mean that we are broken? Are we somehow polluted? Are we somehow, because of what we have done, are we somehow now forever unworthy of your trust? If we acknowledge that those who fight are also vulnerable, are sometimes afraid, does that mean that you who may not have fought are now vulnerable? Does that mean that you should does that mean that all of you should always be afraid? I understand this dilemma, this fear, your fear, and I hope today that I might clarify it. That you have accepted me as an alien, as your friend, as the greatest joy of my life. And I have tried to continue to earn that friendship every day. every second. I have endeavored to be worthy of that mightiest honor, the label some have kindly, very kindly given me, that of hero. And I have seen time and again my colleagues, my super friends, these true heroes bearing this same marvelous burden, engaged in the same endless struggle. I have watched persons from every country, every background rise with power to battle the worst evils, to shout in the face of ignorance and defeat that they shall be another day of dignity for our world, there shall be another day of honor for our people. Battling through unimaginable torment, they have taken their place along the barrier that divides us from chaos and death. They have stared into the certainty of annihilation, and they have smiled, and they have laughed, and they have said, simply, calmly, confidently, though you may break my body, I will stand. Though you may silence my voice, I will speak. Though you bring my death, I will live. This is my home. It is in my care. And though you seek its destruction, I am here. And today, by God, it will not fall. Well, you must know what I know, what I most want you to understand, what you have to understand, is that they do this in full knowledge of the pain they will incur, the scars they will collect, the nightmares they will forever endure. So yes, Sanctuary exists. It exists to help those heroes recover from this pain, to help them recognize themselves under these scars, to help them wake from these nightmares. But its existence should not scare you. On the contrary, it should comfort you. This suffering, this need for healing, it is not a mark of a madman. It is the wound of a warrior. It's a sign of their love of truth, their hunger for justice, and their fight for the American way. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Thank you. Just
God damn.
Right. It's such an absolutely fantastic.
That feels like the kind of speech, especially that stuff about Superman being thankful for being accepted by human society. That feels like the kind of speech that you would have put in Batman v Superman if it was a good movie.
And then like some of the art that they lay over like that speech is just fantastic. Of like, you look at the shiny knight against an impossible odd. The epicness of the stories that get told in DC Comics and just the scale of that. It's absolutely blows me away, and I'm just marveling at it. It is incredibly impressive storytelling. You wrap that up with everything that's going on with Booster Gold and Harley Quinn right now. They're kind of playing a bit of game cat and mouse with each other, which is kind of interesting. Because Booster's trying to figure out what happened and prove his innocence, and Harley's convinced that it was Booster that killed everybody, so she's trying to prove that Booster did it and kill him to get revenge. And it's just absolutely great. And then there's the last page. Tom King knows how to write a good Joker, even if Joker's not in the room, as we get Harley's little confessional moment. She says, so Mr. J said, why did the chicken cross the road? And I said, duh, to get to the other side. And he said, no, to get to the moron's house. Then he said, knock, knock. And I said, who's there? And he said, the chicken. And then he started hitting me. He hit me good. And it's like, that's just about perfect Joker writing, and he's not even in the room. And you just like instantly begin to feel more for Harley. And it's that perfect person still living with the abuse of their abuser from a relationship and working through that. And so you begin to see why she so deeply cares about, kind of getting revenge for the people killed at Sanctuary, because something that made her able to deal with and bring that stuff up is now, if not gone, heavily perverted because of someone. And so she wants her wanting revenge. It is a quest for vengeance. It's not just about fighting Booster Gold. It suddenly becomes this much deeper character-driven thing. So really, really great issue. interestingly enough, this series has only gotten progressively better issue after issue, which is kind of cool.
Interesting. That speech is just the highest selling point I have heard for that book so far. And like I've not been keeping up with it at all, so there could be stuff that happened in intermediate issues that I missed, but that was like, that's top form Tom King.
Yeah, issue 3 is still the best. Issue 5 though is really, really good. So I do highly recommend this series at this point.
Okay. Well, my pick for the final week of the month is going to be Miss Marvel number 37, which I'm not sure, but I think this is G. Willow Wilson's penultimate issue on the book, because in the last page here, can go to it. They advertise like some big milestone. Yes, next issue, G. Willow Wilson and Nickel Leon are joined by a cavalcade of guest creators celebrating 5 fabulous years of Kamala Khan. That sounds like when she'd leave the book, and she's supposed to leave the book pretty soon. So, but I picked this issue because it basically reminded me of some of the best episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, it's this really sort of mundane plot, but there's a lot of really goofy shit that can only happen in this book going on, and just really great little character moments showing this kind of little world that we've made out of Kamala's particular area in Jersey. And it starts off with her and her cousin babysitting their nephew because her brother and his wife are gone doing a thing for the day. I don't think they ever say what exactly. But the baby, after a couple pages, starts crying, and they can't figure out how to stop it. And because there are a couple teenagers who don't know how to handle a kid, their solution is, let's go to the Circle K. Somebody there probably knows. So they go to the Circle K, and they just walk in and start yelling because their friend is behind the register, and they figure maybe he knows something. But it turns out that I'm trying to find the exact word because he's like he's a particular type of religious leader, and I don't want to screw it up.
See, like, this is the kind of thing that if it were just a regular book, I'd like have highlighted it, but I can't do that with a comic. I've done this so many times on the show, and I know it's just the worst feeling because you're like, oh, why can't I find it? I know exactly what it is. I can't find the word. It's so annoying.
Yeah, I don't even see it in here. Oh, Sheik.
Ah,
duh. But he basically goes like, you kids need to calm down. The baby just has gas, so he burps it, and then he walks away because he has to get back to their mosque for the next class he's doing today. And they're all like, yay, we calmed down the baby, isn't he so cute? And then there's a big explosion outside because superhero books, something's got to happen. And we find out that the entire Jersey City sewage lines have backed up, and the entire city is just flooding. And Kamala, of course, puts on her Miss Marvel costume and goes out and goes to the nearest police officer and is like, what's going on? Is there a supervillain attacking? And he's like, no, the pipes are just old. They were supposed to be replaced 3 years ago, but the city sucks at getting things done on time. And she's like, what am I supposed to do then? And he's like, maybe plug it up. I don't know if that would work. And so the book just kind of devolves from there of various side characters from the book trying to survive the city flooding in humorous ways. And this baby basically going on a trip around the city because they lose control of it at one point. It flies out of their arms, and then some of Kamala's other friends catch it because they're in an actual sailboat. And then they hand it off to this old man who's kind of been like a one-off gag character who shows up every once in a while, who is piloting what I think is like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a motorized scooter, but the back wheels have been turned into like rudders, and he's got a wooden chair tied to the front of it to keep it floating. It's just that hilarious cartoon logic of like, yeah, you strap this stuff to a big metal thing and it'll float.
I mean, to be fair, like you look at like a fucking Navy ship and that shit should not float. Like you look at that, I'm like, there's no fucking way. I would honestly believe a wooden chair strapped to like a motorcycle before I'd believe a Navy ship float if I just saw them on land. Like, okay, this clearly will float at least a little bit. That's gonna sink like a rock.
But Kamala ends up going underwater into the sewers and stopping the backup, and eventually finds the baby back with another group of friends of hers who live on higher ground. And they're like, hey, your mom called us a little bit ago. She said you needed to go to the hospital. It's something about your sheik. What? I just saw him at the beginning of the issue. He was fine. What's going on? I don't know. Your mom just said to go. And she ends up rushing to the hospital and finding out that he's had a heart attack for no reason. Just he's an old guy, and he was walking up the stairs to the building, and he just had a heart attack because you get old, you have health risks like that. And he doesn't die, but he's going to be in the hospital for a few weeks. And we get like this nice little, sometimes blessings come in disguise moment of, well, this guy's away, he's not going to be able to do all his regular classes at the mosque. So her brother, who got to the hospital before her, ends up getting to be his replacement for a little while. And for the longest time in this book, he's not had a job. He's been holding out for a job in the religious field that they belong to. And it was one of those kind of jokes of like, oh, he's the deadbeat son. He doesn't do anything. He just blabbers on and on about their religion all day, and he's way too into it. And it's like, no, it finally paid off here. He held out for his dream job, and now he's getting his dream job. And if he does good at it during these few weeks, he might get hired on there permanently. And it's like this really cool little moment of character advancement that you never thought was going to come. You thought this guy was just going to be a punchline for the whole book. And last page reveal, this kid's got superpowers. So I don't know what the hell's up with that, but I guess we'll find out eventually.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, what are we on to now? Honorable mentions, right?
Yes.
Okay. My honorable mention is Guardians of the Galaxy #1.
Oh wow! You picked it up. I looked at it and was like, should I?
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. I really like the premise of what the story is. So, Thanos' brother, I don't remember his name. What?
Star Fox?
Yeah, sure, why not? Has called every one of the Cosmic Marvel, the cavalcade of Cosmic Marvel characters together for Thanos' will and testament, because Thanos died apparently. I don't know what the fuck's going on in current Marvel continuity.
Nick says his name is Eros.
Eros, thank you. Oh, that would make sense because Thanos means darkness, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, Thanos' head got blown off apparently, so they're like 100% sure he dead. And now they're here to read Thanos' last will and testament, and a fucking Thanos hologram starts playing. And he's like, "Now I have trouble believing that anyone killed me before I decided to go, but I prepare for everything. So here's what you need to know. I've put my mind in someone else's body." So there's like a rogue
So he
Thanos.
pulled a Voldemort.
Yeah, there's like a rogue Thanos out there, and all these Cosmic Marvel characters are discussing what to do about it, what's going to happen when suddenly they're attacked by the Black Order, Thanos's minions, who have stolen Nowhere, the giant head that's a city from the Celestial. they've hijacked Nowhere, turned it into a warship, and have attacked this meeting of the Celestials, or of the Cosmic Marvel characters, in order to steal Thanos' body back. And this pretty much just straight fucks half the Cosmic Marvel universe. Meanwhile, Peter Quill and Groot are on their way to the Will and Testament reading. They're late or whatever.
Because of course they are.
Yeah. Or actually, no, they're after Nowhere, because they're going to Nowhere. It's not there, so they're like, okay, we got to track it and find it. Mm-hmm. And they do, and there's like a black hole kind of thing, and they get there in time, and a giant hammer with an orange chain on it shoots out, and Quill's able to get it latch onto the ship, and then they pull people through so that they can save them. And so we've got Beta Ray Bill,
legit.
Okay, Groot, Cosmic
legit.
Ghost Rider, and these legit. 2 female characters who I don't even know who they are on the ones that survived. And the Nova Corps is there, and it's like, okay, we need to know who's on this ship, because they shouldn't even have been at this Will reading of Thanos's. That was an illegal gathering. And Quill's like, nah, fuck off. You don't get to know who's on my ship. And they're like, that only extends to members of your crew. You have to tell us if anyone else is on board. And he's like, oh, yeah, they're with me. This is my new crew. And he's got Frank Castle, Cosmic Ghost Rider down there. He's like, wait, no. I ain't signing up to be a member of the damn. That's a great page turn. No lie, that's really,
that feels like the opening 10 minutes of a movie, doesn't
right?
It?
That is really where the issue should have ended, but we do get a post-credit scene, as it were, and that's the Black Order bringing Thanos' body to someone who wants to bring him back, and the Black Order's like, no, this is terrible. Thanos is with the love of his life. We should leave him alone. And the person in the chair says, or the leader of the Black Order says, to rip him away from her would be to wage war against death itself. No one can defy her will. Not even you, Hela, goddess of death.
Oh my god.
So this is a pretty, like, Donny Cates is writing it, and he wrote Cosmic Ghost Rider. He definitely has like a mood for comic book writing of just like.
I haven't actually read Cosmic Ghost Rider, but I've seen tons of panels from that, and it looks like such a good book.
It's a super fun ride, and so Donny Cates, like, he's definitely not your like down to earth and really metaphorical and explorative comic book writer. He's like, let's do some fucking cool, fun shit with comic books. And he's just, you can tell he's just having the time of his life writing this stuff. He's just cackling away at the keyboard and whatnot. He's having a good old time. So this is a pretty fun series.
That's good.
I'm quite enjoying it. I think I'll add it for at least the first story arc, because I really did enjoy that first issue.
All right. Well, my honorable mention is also a book that really impressed me and is now going to be part of my poll. Because this is actually kind of thematically tied in, because we talked a bit at the beginning of this show about how we're now kind of in the second year, and we started off, and if you'll remember, my first pick for Worst of the Month was a WWE WrestleMania special by Boom Studios. And I still stand by that being a big honking piece of shit. But ever since I did that, ever since I made that pick, people have been telling me, you have to try the WWE ongoing. The regular ongoing is really good if you're a wrestling fan. Just trust me. Just try it. This is all Chris has said to me as far as comics have gone since that fucking thing happened. So finally, after seeing a page from the latest issue, I went and picked up WWE number 24. And this is like, it's a pretty gratuitous pun, but this is phenomenal. This is just like a really great addition to kayfabe, helping make more sense out of AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura's rivalry that went into WrestleMania last year and then came out of it, because I believe they were feuding for like 3 or 4 months after that as well. It took up a couple more pay-per-views. It starts way back during Survivor Series 2017, where Shinsuke Nakamura is just watching his match and talking about how impressive AJ Styles is, and how he's almost sure this is the guy. This is going to be the guy to beat Brock Lesnar. And then AJ loses, and he goes, "Aw, that's too bad. It's my turn now." And so then we get this cool scene where AJ is coming back after the fight, and it's in kayfabe, so they're pretending like these are real. They're writing it as if these are real people fighting for real. So he's like, that fight was an honor to watch. It was truly impressive. And he's like, well, I kind of wish I'd won, but thank you. And he's like, I understand how you feel. We still on for rooftop pizza? And he's like, yeah, that's the only way to end a pay-per-view night. Right. And so we get this cool little scene of them just chilling out on top of the stadium they were performing in and having a slice together, talking about what it's like being on the road, and basically doing the kind of anime rival thing of being like, you know, one day we're going to fight and it's going to be awesome. Really? You're gonna have to get quite a ways to get up to my level right now. And he's like, don't worry about that. I'll get it done. And then we cut right up to the Royal Rumble 2018, where Shinsuke Nakamura won. And for those of you not wrestling fans, Ian, the Royal Rumble is a big match that happens every year. There's a men's one and there's a women's one. The winner of the match gets a title opportunity of their choosing, which will let them headline at that year's WrestleMania. So Shinsuke won, and he's immediately given a microphone, and you've won the right to face a champion of your choosing. Have you made that decision? And as those of you who watched that Royal Rumble will remember, he just goes, AJ Styles. Shinsuke Nakamura is like a freaky psychotic dance man, and I love him. And it immediately cuts backstage to show AJ talking with Daniel Bryan, who at that point was the commissioner of SmackDown Live, the show they're on, and it's now you've got yourself a WrestleMania match. Did he tell you that too? Not in so many words, but I can't wait. So we cut forward to the WrestleMania match, and we show just how insane and grueling of a match this was. Like this was one of the highlights of WrestleMania that year. And you see this kind of narration running through Shinsuke's head, and him going like, "This fight is so awesome. This is exactly what I wanted to be. This is great." And then he gets pinned, and he's going, "Oh shit, I'm gonna lose. It's only one thing I can do." So he goes in for the "you've honored me" thing, and then people who have seen WrestleMania know this, but I'm kind of trying to build it up for Ian. Right to the low blow. And this was a huge moment, because up until now, Shinsuke Nakamura had kind of been what is a good guy, a face in wrestling, and this was his heel turn in becoming a villain. And like, this was a huge moment for Shinsuke Nakamura fans, because he did this and then immediately walked off stage, and we didn't hear from him for like 2 weeks. And then finally there was a backstage segment where the interviewer on SmackDown came up to him and just said, You've been executing these vicious attacks on AJ Styles. Why, Shinsuke Nakamura? Why? She puts the microphone up to his face, and he just goes, "Sorry, I no speak English." Because it's a really hilarious thing, because ever since Shinsuke Nakamura got called up to the main roster, WWE, for whatever reason, hadn't been letting him talk a whole bunch, and he'd be wearing this big, ridiculous mouth guard. So it felt like he was taking that and like directly making fun of the writers for not letting him talk. And he's like, "Here, there's a reason for me not to talk now." So we get all this stuff with AJ running around backstage being like, "Where's Shinsuke? I want his head. I'm super pissed off. I want a rematch. There's no way he can get away with doing that to me." So we get a few more scenes of them having matches at various pay-per-views that occurred over 2018, and Shinsuke just keeps ending it with a low blow and going, "You're welcome. You're welcome," over and over again. And we get this backstage scene where AJ storms into what I guess is supposed to be like a lunchroom or something like that. And he's going, "You're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome." What the hell does that mean? And I love this. There's one little line from Paige, the other commissioner of SmackDown, but they like get her character down to a T. Just goes, "Oh, goody. AJ's yelling again." And so he goes up to Shinsuke and he's like, "Tell me, what are you driving at? What the hell is going on with you?" And Shinsuke just goes, "Sorry, I don't speak English." "Oh, you suddenly forgot how to speak English. Don't understand. Fine. I lived in Japan long enough. Tell me in Japanese." "Sorry." He just smacks this bowl of noodles Shinsuke is eating out of his hands. And he's like, "You better freaking tell me right now." And Shinsuke just laughs at him and goes, "You're welcome." And so we get to their match at Money in the Bank, which was this crazy, grueling last man standing match. The two guys basically freaking killed each other. And we get the classic Shinsuke Nakamura, "Come on!" And we see the moment where AJ finally lost his cool and did a low blow on Nakamura himself, basically pushing him to the breaking point. But he still wins. He still ends up being the last man standing. So we cut to this backstage segment where AJ is kind of recuperating after the match, and Shinsuke comes in and he just goes, "AJ Styles!" And AJ is just like, "Oh, hell no," and closes the door very slowly. "Are we alone?" "Yeah, we are. Ain't nobody gonna see what I do if you don't get out of my face right now." And Shinsuke Nakamura just hugs him and just goes, "Tonight, my friend, you honored me." And he's like, "Friend, what the fuck are you talking about?" And pushes him away. And Shinsuke goes into this speech about why he's been punching him in the dick so much and why he's been extending this rivalry out. And he's like, "You had me at WrestleMania. You had me pinned. It was over. I lost. But that wasn't the fight I won. That fight wasn't good enough. We didn't go as far as we could have as competitors. We didn't sync up, just basically classic anime shit of our Kokoros didn't Doki Doki exactly the same way, and we weren't perfectly in sync, and we had to have our ultimate fight together in order to prove that we are the perfect rivals. So I did the only thing I knew would extend the rivalry. The low blow, the dirtiest move in wrestling." And it's so great because it perfectly plays into Shinsuke Nakamura's persona as he is the artiste wrestler. He is really into the medium and cares about putting on the perfect show for everybody. Whereas AJ Styles is just kind of the southern everyman. He's nice, but if you get in his face, if you're an asshole to him, he's gonna lose his cool. And it's this perfect playing of those two characters, and it ends in them actually coming to an understanding instead of just leaving it and being like, "Well, it ended the way it ended on SmackDown. You saw that, right?" It actually gives a good resolution to this feud and says, "So all those your welcomes, you actually meant that. Yes, but also thank you." And it's like, holy fucking shit. Dennis Hopeless, you get these characters. You clearly actually watch wrestling and understand what these characters are like and can make good additions to the continuity and the storylines and salvage something that maybe ended something kind of unsatisfactorily. And on top of that, the art is just great. It's like this very smooth kind of cartoony art that has a good bit of muscular definition to it, but also the faces look very photorealistic without looking like they're just drawn from a screen cap looking at you, Titan Doctor Who comics. So yeah, I was really impressed by this. this probably would have taken my spot for week 1 if it wasn't for the fact that I just read it this week. So that's why it's an honorable mention. But definitely going to be keeping up with the main WWE book from here on out, especially because next month's issue is supposed to be about AJ's rivalry with Samoa Joe, which was freaking awesome.
Cool. Alrighty. What are we on to next?
Worst of the month. So I guess that means I just go again.
Yeah.
Okay, give me just a second here, everybody. Just get in the bag. All right, moving on to worst of the month, and this may be another get your pitchforks moment. I'm not sure. I haven't seen what the general reception on this book has been, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer #1. Did you read this, Ian?
I have no interest in Whedon.
Yeah, so I picked this up just because of morbid curiosity, and like it's the same publisher who did who's doing the Power Rangers comics, and I've been really liking those, except for the current MMPR run. So I figured, like, okay, I wasn't exactly into Buffy. Like, I have kind of an infamous video about Buffy and Angel which is basically just me saying, well, I get it, but it's not for me. And then everybody went, well, I feel I've had this similar experience to you, and I liked it, so that means you should like it too. No, that's not how words work. Go away. So I picked this up thinking, like, maybe this will be like a nice way for me to finally get into Buffy, and it just felt like a weird betrayal of everything that was going on in that series. Like, from what I understand it, the whole Slayer thing is supposed to be a metaphor for growing up, and there's a lot of Buffy in the early episodes being very innocent and not really knowing how to handle the job, and Giles guiding her. At this, they're really butting heads. She's kind of like a punky acting out, I know better than you. Like, she's that teenage stereotype, and it didn't really work for me. It didn't feel like Buffy at all. There's a lot of like really gratuitous fan baiting going on where they talk about witches at one point, and it's like it's very heavily implied, like, yeah, Willow becomes a witch later on. Remember that from the show? And that brings me to Willow, who is already, if I can find a panel, Willow is already dressing like she was in the later seasons. And like, Willow was one of the best things about that show because she has this very slow and gradual development of coming out of her shell from being like the generic nerd girl to being like this, to say it in a very blunt way, to kind of like liberated, empowered, or grown up, I'm a badass, I can handle the world kind of.
Is she a strong, independent woman?
She is very much a strong, independent woman, and she goes from being like the tech expert of the team to being, as I said earlier, the witchcraft expert of the team, which is a very cool transition they do over the course of a couple seasons. And it's really weird because all these characters feel like they're being written from points later on in the show than the start of the story, which this is very clearly the first time all of these characters are meeting, and it just feels, it felt very much like this person forgot what the first couple seasons were like, especially because we have freaking Anya showing up at the end of the comic when she wasn't even in the show till like very late season 2. And like, I'm not saying you can't introduce certain popular characters earlier in the story, but you have to feel like there's a reason for it. And the way she's introduced here is completely different than the way she's introduced in the show. She's kind of set up to be a villain rather than like this one-off threat that becomes a main cast hero character and sort of gets redeemed over the course of a couple seasons. So yeah, this just felt really weird and off-putting to me. Not at all like what I think of Buffy as. It could get better as it goes on, but it doesn't feel like something I want to spend more than this first issue on.
Okay. All right. So now we're on to best cover. And so mine is The Green Lantern, #3. Because this shit is so on brand for Grant Morrison. And
Wait,
Liam
this
Sharp.
is your what?
Best cover?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This shit is so on brand for Grant Morrison, and Liam Sharp just does a fantastic job of delivering it, of Green Lantern versus God. And that's just such a great...
Grant gonna do what Grant gonna do.
Yeah, Grant Morrison. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do a nice down-to-earth, procedural cop show with the Green Lantern Corps. Issue #3, he's gonna arrest God. It's just so perfect.
Yeah.
And the issue is really good too. It's kind of interesting, and Hal kind of takes things too far. So I'm interested to see where that goes. But man, I just love this cover. That's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. That's like the kind of 60s Star Trek level weird sci-fi-ness that I really miss, because you don't really see that much anymore. And so this was fun to see too. So yeah, good cover.
All right. Well, my pick for best cover is the variant for Action number 1007, with Superman kind of making the American flag in the sky. I just thought that was a really cool image.
Okay. All right. I'm torn because I had a very strong month for best of the week. Or best of the month.
This is a banger month, man.
Yeah, like, dude, you don't even understand. I usually, like, okay.
Thanos says I like Ian's Killmonger shirt.
Oh, wow. Okay, anyway. Like, I was going... What I do to prepare for the show is I look at my books after I've finished my show for the week, right? And I take what I think is going to be my best and I put it off to the side. And then for the last stuff, like honorable mention, best cover, worst of the month, I just go through all those like 10, 15 minutes before the show and decide then. Sitting here trying to decide the honorable mention for the week, I had like half my stack. So it's like, it's not only that it was good for like the best picks, there were a lot of really great books out this week, or this month, I mean. So like choosing best of the month is really, really hard for me. I'm going to go with Batman #62 just because I think it is one of the best issues of Tom King's run, which has been one of the best runs on comics the last couple of years, if not ever.
That's fair enough. My best of the month is going to be Winter Soldier #2. I was just really impressed with some of the storytelling that's going on here. Just a great concept. And I'm really interested to see where it goes from here because this is a mini. So this is very clearly going to be a specific story about Bucky trying to rehabilitate this kid. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not he actually does manage to do that. Like, are we going to get a new teen sidekick for freaking Winter Soldier by the time we're done with this? I think that might be pretty interesting to see happen or not. And also because this is a mini, I'm not going to be like, go out and get this and start reading it month to month now. The trade's going to be out in a couple months. It's a 5-issue mini. Winter Soldier Second Chances. It's already been solicited. When the trade comes out, I'd say go and get that, unless the next 3 issues are just god-awful. But if they are, you'll know. Because I'll probably make at least one of them worst of the month.
Nice. Alrighty. Well, that wraps up our top issues and such. Vac, what have we got for comic news tonight?
Well, hardly anything. It's been a pretty sparse month for news, but we do have 4 stories here I thought would be of interest. First of all, this came out right at the start of the month. Bendis teases Legion of Superheroes, Fourth World, and more for 2019. So basically what this is Bendis put out a Instagram post, which was just a bunch of images, slideshowing of like stuff he's going to be working on at DC over.
Oh my God, is he going to take over Batman Beyond from Jurgens?
He might. We don't know for sure, but Batman Beyond is in there, so Batman Beyond is probably going to be in. If he's not working on that book, Batman Beyond is going to be in something he's working on. So yeah, there's a Wonder Woman image. an image of a Superman costume. I'm sure this is from like a specific issue where something important happens that he's probably going to be bringing back, but I don't know exactly what it is. An image of Thorn, which is a very old character that we haven't seen in quite a while. An image of Batman looking out over the city. A Fourth World, I believe this is a panel from Fourth World.
Mm-hmm.
A super extreme close-up on the Legion of Superheroes logo. Not sure what that one's supposed to be. Not sure on that one either. I think it's related to Batman somehow, but it's not exactly coming to me.
It could maybe be Matches Malone.
And this is clearly Superboy having some kind of alien space tech thing done to him. So maybe that's got something to do with why he's so old now. We'll find out. But just basically a bunch of teaser images for stuff Bendis is going to be working on in the next year, and some interesting stuff that may be coming.
Cool.
Yeah.
I should say, while I am disappointed in the move with John, I've still really enjoyed his voice for like 90% of Superman stuff. So it's just that one was a herder, but the rest of it, what he's been doing at DC so far, I've been really happy with. So,
well, that's good. All right, moving on to our second story of the month. There's going to be a new Thanos mini, and it will be about his relationship with Gamora, specifically like right after he adopted her, because you can see on the cover image here, very young looking Gamora going on. I think you can actually see, yeah, there's the full cover for the first issue. This is going to be coming out in April, and it's basically part of the big Marvel anniversary thing. It's going to be written by Teeny Howard, and the artist will be Ariel Olivetti, exploring the early days of the Mad Titan's relationship with his adoptive daughter, Gamora. One of my favorite things about working with an existing character is confronting them in the narrative with the things we think about them when we're reading their stories, Howard told Marvel.com. And Thanos is not okay. It's not really a secret to him. Thanos is brilliant. He knows he's crazy, but he's an insane person who is in charge of stuff, and that's pretty scary. So it seems like we're going to be kind of doing the big criticism everybody has of Thanos post-Infinity War with how he handled his treatment of his daughters. So I think this could be an interesting thing to read. I'm not super well-versed in comic book Thanos, so I may not know enough to jump into it, but I'll at least give it a try because it sounds like an interesting premise to me.
Cool.
Next up, we've got kind of some sad news, but, it's not entirely unexpected. George Perez has officially announced he is retiring from comics. Basically, he put this big statement up on his website saying, like, hey, I'm old as shit. I can't really keep doing this anymore. And that's perfectly understandable. And he's already given us so many amazing books and images over the years that I'm perfectly okay with this. And, I hope he has a fun and healthy retirement.
Yeah, honestly, you kind of prefaced it as sad news, and really it's not. In comics, that someone gets to retire is actually pretty good news, because that's pretty freaking rare.
It means that guy kept a good eye on his finances.
Yeah, like you look at a lot of the stories about this, because I've seen a lot of comics creators talking about George Perez retiring, and they're like, keep in mind, this is a privilege for people in this industry. So it's a big deal that he's able to retire, and they're really wishing him the best. That he's got the consciousness to realize that he can't keep doing this, that he's gonna hurt himself. It's a big deal. So I'm actually quite happy for him, and I hope he has a really happy retirement.
Yeah. I really meant it was sad in kind of the way of like, we're not going to get any more George Perez art going forward, but like at the same time, we've got tons of it, and I'm sure if there's anybody in the audience like me, there's tons of George Perez drawn stuff you haven't read yet. So there's plenty more out there for you to experience in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair.
So our final story for this month is going right back to Brian Michael Bendis. I guess I just got us a big Bendis sandwich this month. Bendis has teased Leviathan, DC's next monumental event. So, yeah, for those of you who are reading Action right now, the current story is called Leviathan Rising, and it's basically building towards the next event after Heroes in Crisis, which is going to be titled Leviathan. And I'm kind of on the same track as you are, Ian. I'm pretty sure it's the same Leviathan from Batman Incorporated. But,
no, I was straight joking. There's no way it's the same Leviathan from Batman Incorporated.
Damn it.
No possible way, because that was run by Talia al Ghul, and it was
Talia al Ghul got ousted recently of the League of Shadows and everything. She's on the run right now, so it's entirely possible it could be the same group.
Maybe. I'm pretty sure it's just two writers using the same name because it's ominous.
That's fair.
It's just like Leviathan was in Batman Incorporated, and it was tied in entirely to Talia al Ghul's big fuck you to Bruce Wayne. That was pretty much the whole point of Leviathan, was a big direct attack against Bruce Wayne. So I doubt it's the same organization.
Could be, could not be. I guess we'll have to wait and see to find out. Bendis has said of it, you will soon hear a lot about it. He wrote in the latest Jinx World newsletter seen in his and David Mack's cover number 5. It's something so big, so monumental to the DC universe, it was worth pausing our numerous creator-owned stuff for. This special story lets Alex do everything he's ever wanted to. And yeah, that's pretty much all the information we have so far. But basically, Bendis is doing a big DC event. Pretty fitting considering he did a lot of Marvel events for the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing real too concrete about this yet. Just we know what the next DC event is going to be called, and it's being penned by Bendis, so I'm at least fairly interested in checking it out.
That's cool.
Yeah. And that is literally all of the news. Now, how do I turn this shit off?
That's cool. I'm actually kind of glad it was a shorter news month because I'm hungry and I want to go eat right now.
Yeah.
We did a pretty good show though. It was a pretty good length show.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Extra weeks this month. A lot to talk about. A lot of good ass shit and a nice little brawl right there in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye.